Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Children of Earth and Sky by Gavriel K. And this book, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, I would say this book is about family lost and family reunited. It has a unique cast of characters from vastly different walks of life, and the entire story is all about the way that their lives intermingle and interact with each other in strange and interesting ways. So, what is Children of Earth and Sky like about, more or less? Um, it's 1,000 years after the fall, after the events, I should say, of the Sarantine mosaic, and we follow a group of people spread across the continent per se, from different parts of the world, and and we see the threads that bind them in ways that they don't that you no sane person would expect. Um, and it's a very varied cast of characters. We have a young soldier who was kidnapped as a child and trained to become this war's equivalent of a janissary. We have a young woman who sets out on a quest for vengeance. We have a painter who's dispatched on a suicide mission. We have a disgraced aristocrat who sets out to act as a spy. Um, and we have a merchant prince trying to make his way. It's a very random cast of characters, and the way that they come together is just fascinating. To put it to say the least, like this is yet another in quite a few GGK books I could think of where we just have this random cast of characters, completely different, completely separate, and at first brush there's nothing, no commonalities, no threads between these people. But as the story progresses, it very much becomes a story. They each have their own subplots per se, but it very much becomes a story that's really just an amalgamation of their tale. And there might or might not be something larger that's happening in the overall scheme of things. Like in this case, is there something larger happening? That will be up to you to decide. Is a great way to put it. But as you can expect from pretty much any human story, it's just a story full with just these moments of uh, high emotion, like passion, dread, horror, relief, joy, fury, elation, you name it. Like these the experiences of these characters, they run the gamut, I would say. And I think in that regard, it's a book that plays very much to GTK's strengths, because it's you don't really get much more character driven than this. Is one way I would think of it. Um, of course, the thing that really binds all of this together is just GTK's spectacular writing, which I will never get tired of talking about. How the man does it is beyond me. Like, I, if now having read a little more, if I had to pick one author who I would say comes close, if not is on par with him in the fantasy genre, would be Johnny Wirtz. In just the way that their prose is written, the way, the elegance and the style of it's just on a whole other level. Um, so if you've never read a GGK book but you have read Johnny Wirtz, now you know what you're in for. Um, as I mentioned, this book is like set 1,000 years after the Sarantine mosaic. If you've read that, which which obviously makes it set in the same world as a few out of GGK's books. Now, I think with this one, we have Children of Earth and Sky, we have the Sarantine mosaic, we have the Lions of al-rassan, um, we have all the seas of the world, and even though I haven't read it as yet, I was told that A Brightness Long Ago does also fit into this world. And it's not a world in the sense that there's any like real threads running through these stories. Like you might get a nod to something here or there. Like there is a nod to something in this Arcane Mosaic in this very book. Um, but it's really just a shared space where all these stories play out. So far that I've seen at least. Um, if there's any common threads between the other books that are set within this world, I haven't, or any direct ties, I haven't I haven't seen that as yet. And it's why I wanted to mention it is because it's not something that really impacts your reading of the story. It is something that just enriches it. And I just continue to marvel at the way that GGK just handles how he builds this world. Like, most fantasy authors will sit you down at the tavern table and have a dwarf or some other stand in, bash you over the head with an encyclopedia of all the fascinating things about this world. GGK isn't going to waste time with that when he has a whole cast of characters running all across the map who can do it for him. And that's pretty much what happens here. As these people go through their lives, we see so many different things. We see something interesting related to the status of the Sarantine Empire in its present form, and based on what we saw here, like I would say this world almost seems to be in like GGK's equivalent of like the Renaissance period for the middle or roughly the Renaissance period for Europe, and and around the time when the Middle East was a much more when the Middle East was much more acknowledged as a rival, I would say. I'm not quite sure how to phrase that, but like think of like roughly the time when Saladin and the like the Crusades and these kind of things may have been going on. Like that's roughly around the time when I think this would have been going on in GGK's equivalent. I don't know. I'm probably wrong on that. Cool. Whatever. You get it. But yeah, through these people, through the story, like if I had to say there was an overarching story to this, I would say it's a story that shows us just how dramatically the world has changed. We do see some major events that happen here. Major events in terms of changes on the geopolitical scale, and yeah, I would say that's kind of the point of this book, because otherwise I can't really think about what it was. It was really just a collection of intertwined stories of a few different characters and whose tales came together in strange and amusing ways. Yeah. All in the end, I would have to say this is really just another great book from GGK. I wouldn't put it like among his top tier stuff, but it's certainly not among his worst. I would put it at about like mid-level for him. So if you haven't read GGK as yet, this is not the place I would recommend that you start. That will forever be the Alliance of al-Rassan, and I will die on that hill. That book is the single best thing GGK has ever written. So if you've never read anything from him, that's the book to start with. But once you've made it past like at least the big three, Lines of al-Rassan, Tigana, and A Song for Arbon, this one would be worth picking up. Especially if you, or it might be worth picking up after you've also read the Sarantine Mosaic, because it's interesting to see how things have changed since then, and what survived more interestingly. But yeah, all in all, really fun book. Anything from GGK is just a joy to read. Even if the man has even if he really does nothing much in there, just the way he writes is just such a pleasure to immerse yourself in, that me personally, I always have a good time reading it. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Children of Earth and Sky. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.